Well, I'm not doing an actual physical reaction, but I wanted to talk about this. Because I didn't watch the stream, but Foodie Beauty Chantal put a video up, and the title was called Pizza Party Carb Haters Not Welcome. Chantal. Honey, we don't hate carbs because the body will create its own carbs. It's called gluconeogenesis. All right? And actually, No Madness, you should thank her, by the way. No Madness actually understands how it works. Your body breaks down the proteins and the fats from the meat, okay? It knows what to do with that. When you take in sugars, that actually gets stored in the liver, and the glucose gets stored in the cells the glucose the liver takes in, I guess, I don't know. She explained it better. I can't explain it. I'm not the scientific type to be explaining it. But No Madness Life even knows how it works. She actually understands how carbs work. You don't use them. They're not energy. I mean, the body's like, whoa, we got to get rid of this. So it ramps up certain hormones. But it really isn't. We don't use the carbs that we take in. We don't use them. That's why in excessive amounts, you have too much sugar in the blood, and therefore you get diabetes. Sneeze. Excuse me. Okay. So, Chantal, the reason you're hungry all the time is because you're taking insulin. Okay? For those who don't know, she started taking insulin. As long as you continue to gain weight, girl, on your own, you don't need insulin, girl. You don't need insulin. Okay? And for all those people out there claiming, oh, but diabetes, ketoacidosis. Type 2s do not get ketoacidosis. The only time they ever do, and even then, I don't know. I think it can happen if you're like really, really sick and your sugars go way, way up. Like you already have some kind of virus, right? Then the sugars go up. And then on top of that, you have high ketones because you're not eating. You're not hungry enough to eat. So your ketones go up to like 3 or 4. And then with the sugar so high, yeah, you might start getting a little acidic in there. Yeah, because you're sick. You're sick. All right? Chantal, you'll never go into ketoacidosis. You know how I know? Not unless your pancreas actually quits working. And I don't think it has, because before you were on insulin, you still hadn't lost any weight. Because you looked the same as you did the previous few days before that, the previous few days before that, the previous days before that. So you hadn't lost any weight. I'm not going to get into how much she weighs or anything like that, but I know she hasn't lost anything. She gains and gains and gains, really. We don't see her losing. All right? When you look at her, all right? I'm not saying numbers, but I just know she hasn't lost anything. She's consistent with, like, the amount is consistent, if not going up. The amount of kilos, pounds, whatever you want to measure it in. It doesn't... You don't need insulin if you are still able to gain weight on your own. I feel like even with a hypoactive thyroid, even with a hypoactive thyroid, you probably would end up losing some weight because you need the insulin to store the fat. So I feel like eventually you would start to, look, I think you would have specifically said that your ketones were way, way up. I think you would have. If not, Chantal, I would be smart and get a meter that measures your ketones and your sugars. Measure your ketones. Do you even have ketones in your blood? Because if it doesn't pick them up, that probably means you don't have any. Chances are you don't have any. If you don't smell it in your urine, you're going to smell it, by the way. It smells like, okay, when I first went into keto, I had higher ketones. You smell it. It's this kind of, it mixes with the urine and creates this kind of weird old fruit smell. It's old, like it's an old fruit, like not just a typical fruit smell, but an old fruit smell. Okay, I should know because I smelt it before. Chantal, you would smell it. I know you can smell. You would smell, it smells very, it doesn't smell like sugar, it smells like fruit. Like a burned floral fruit smell. It's really weird. But the consistency of your pee would probably remain the same because I don't remember my pee feeling thicker or coming out differently or burning or whatever. No, it doesn't really burn. You just smell it for a few days and then it kind of goes away and normalizes. And you would have symptoms almost 24 hours after feeling the first bit. Chantal, you would be gasping for air from what I have read about ketoacidosis. And then you'd be puking a lot. You'd need to go to the hospital. And then it would be an emergency situation, Chantal. If that's never happened, if you just went into the hospital because, you're feeling like maybe you're having heart attacks or whatever, which I mean, I'm not going to rule that out, but I'm not even going to assume anything happened. Or if you've had heat stroke or something. Guys, she's still in the Middle East, for those who don't know. Heat stroke is a real possibility. Dehydration is a real possibility. Ketoacidosis, as long as you're still producing insulin, is not possible. It's not possible. Alrighty? It isn't. Your insulin has to be really, really low to non-existent. And then your sugars have to be really, really high, and so do your ketone levels. Your body tightly regulates this if it's healthy. It regulates all of this. I remember thinking it through and being like, okay. I didn't even have to read anything on this to figure it out. There was a story I heard about where a woman had a pancreatic tumor on her, an undiagnosed pancreatic tumor. And when she tried keto, her sugars plummeted and she had seizures. When they ran tests on her, she had no ketones. None. Her insulin was through the roof. No ketones. So don't go telling me, but type 2 is got ketoacidosis too. Then you have type 1 at that point. Late onset type 1, okay? You have a type 1.5 as they term it, because you were not a child when you were diagnosed with it. You later developed type 1 diabetes because you damaged your pancreas. Okay? You don't get ketoacidosis with high enough insulin and high enough sugars to where you can't produce ketones if it's like that. You can't. You don't. That's why when type 1's going to the hospital for ketoacidosis, they treat it with insulin and it gets better. Takes a while. I don't exactly know what else is involved, but I'm sure they give insulin. I'm sure that's part of it. But I'm sure they get better. Ketone levels go down the more insulin you have. That woman had no ketones because of the pancreatic tumor. Your insulin levels dictate how much ketones you are able to produce. You can't break down your fat stores if you don't have, if your insulin doesn't go down. You don't start breaking down the fat stores if your insulin level does not go down. Your insulin level has to go down, and then you start producing ketones. And the sugars naturally should be going with it. Now, with a type 1, what happens is the sugars keep going up because they keep eating sugars or anything that ramps up the sugars. And because they don't have the insulin to regulate all the sugar spikes, and even they could be even eating carnivore. If they don't take the insulin, eventually, even on carnivore, they're going to start going up and up and up because their insulin is non-existent. Okay, I have heard of some type 1s actually starting to reverse some of the damage from type 1. Okay, I've heard of that. I'm not saying it's always possible, but I've heard of it. Okay? I have heard of it happening, some of the damage reversing. All right? But let's say you're a type 1 and you're on carnivore and you keep getting the tests done and you still don't produce any insulin from your pancreas because there are special tests you have to do. Okay, Chantal, get this done to be sure that you still produce it. Because if you still produce it, I'm telling you right now, you don't need the insulin. Your insulin's only going to make it worse taking the exogenous insulin. You don't need it. Get this test done to be sure. C-peptide. And Dr. Berry even stresses this. C-peptide. This isn't even about going keto here. This is about the test you need done to be sure you are still producing insulin. Type 1s with low enough C-peptide have to keep taking insulin. They have to. They must. Or they will die. Because the sugars are going to go up even on the best low-carb diet possible. You could be eating no carbs. You will end up ramping up your sugars eventually. The ketones will be through the roof, and then you'll get sick. If that does not happen to you, then you do not have type 1. You can do keto safely and be fine. You will not have that happen. Okay? As long as you have as long as you have ketones with insulin, with blood sugars going down, everything's starting to go down gradually. Insulin, sugars, and ketones, all of that is in balance when you have properly functioning pancreas. I am getting so sick of these people claiming that ketoacidosis type is the type 2 as well. Blah, blah, blah. No, you don't have type 2 anymore. You have adult onset type 1 if you are having ketoacidosis. Or you have some kind of infection that has ramped up your sugars so much and ramped down your insulin and you haven't eaten, and then bam, your ketones rise. That only happens if you have a really bad infection. Or you have adult onset type 1. Look into it, people. I understand it now. I used to be probably one of the most stupidest people on earth. Do you know what I mean? If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. I could not function in school. Now I understand human biology. Not all of it. Not all of it. I definitely can't explain certain things in words still. That's still difficult. I can't understand how the whole sugars break down and everything. I can't explain it. I understand it in a nutshell, how it works. But then to explain it in words is like what do I say? How do I say this properly? I understand it though. I understand it. I get it. I know how it works. So you can't sit there and tell me, oh, you're spreading misinformation. No. Google it. You can Google it. There are so many resources talking to you about the difference between type 2 and type 1, okay? And then you can actually find out, okay, who gets ketoacidosis? When you look into it, a lot of the cases end up being type 1s or people who have developed such severe infections that their sugars ramp up because of the way their bodies are responding. But then the insulin goes down because they're not eating, but yet the sugars are high, and then the ketones go up, and bam. That has to be really bad. It has to be pretty bad for that to happen. I'm going to tell you right now, people, I understand it. Sugars do go up more when you're getting sick. My friend even told me that. She has type 2 diabetes. She said whenever you start getting sick, your sugars go up in response. Not dangerous, but they go up a few points. Right? Or even a few units. Like instead of 5, it's like 7. Right? Right. All right? So don't even get me started. Don't even go there. Don't even try with me. Because I understand it. Okay? It's rare, if at all possible, for a type 2 to get diabetes, ketoacidosis. Diabetic, rather. You cannot, it does not happen. And I know a type 1, okay? I know a couple type 1s. She's on an insulin pump, one of them. She has an insulin pump. And she said to me that a type 1 can go into ketoacidosis. A type 2 can also have complications from high blood sugar, but they don't go into ketoacidosis because I don't get it. I don't get, you know what I mean? It's scary though. It's scary. The only thing I don't understand is, how is it that low and high blood sugars present with the same signs? How's that? How? That's what I want to know. Right? Right. So, help me figure that out, please. I'm so tired. Everybody's saying, oh, Chantal's going to get ketoacidosis one day. Chantal's going to get ketoacidosis one day. You can't as long as you have insulin in your system. You can't. I should know. I've seen it. I understand it too. I would have gone into ketoacidosis because I had high insulin, right? I also had high sugars. I could tell because when I quit when I quit eating all the processed sugars and just started eating vegetables and meat, you know what happened? I got the faint feeling. I got that because my insulin was going down and my sugars were going down too. But my ketones were a little up for a few days. A few days! And you know what I didn't do? I didn't say, oh, I feel like I'm getting worse, so I'm gonna, I was about to call the hospital. I was like, look, I was even gonna say, like, look, if I end up getting really sick here, I'm gonna call 911. I promised myself that if something really bad starts to happen, I'm going to call 911, and then this whole thing, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to quit the keto thing. I'm going to quit it. I was like, well, I feel okay right now. I'll see where this goes. I'll keep taking the electrolytes. I'll keep taking the drinking the water. I'll have a little bit of sugar if I really feel like I need to have a bit of a boost. And sometimes I did need to do that. And you know what? It always helped. It always helped me. I felt so much better when I would do that. I'm like, well, at least I know now why I felt that way. It was my sugars. Okay? I listened to my body, and I was even going to say, if this doesn't help, I might go into the hospital to get some testing. Especially if I start getting worse. I promised myself that. And I even promised my mom. I said, look, I'm going to do this for 30 days. If I can't get through this thing, if something bad happens, I'll stop. So, I'm doing this now 4 years. Eating almost nothing but meat now. I do eat some carbs, but they're not fiber carbs. Because I can't digest fiber. And you know what? No ketoacidosis. Nothing. It's not because Chantal is so unhealthy that she would get ketoacidosis regardless. It's because she needs to not be producing insulin to end up developing ketoacidosis. She can't have insulin. She can't. In order for that to happen, her insulin levels must be nil. Nothing. Zilch, zero, nothing. Nada. Nothing. No insulin. Or very, very, very small amounts with high amounts of blood sugar. High amounts in the blood. High amounts of sugar. And then the ketones raise up. Right? Okay? That's how that works. That is how that works. I understand it. I have Googled this. And that's why type 1s are more commonly seen with this issue. Not type 2s, people. It's always the type 1s. Or anyone with a very low insulin and high blood sugar. Very, very low insulin and high blood sugar. If you have a low insulin and a high blood sugar, you're going to have high ketones, and that's going to spell disaster. Potentially. Okay? Depending on how high the ketones are. If you start feeling really bad symptoms and you're getting like short of breath and you're like, something isn't right, like my body's just, something's wrong, you know, then you go get the tests done and you figure out, okay, so I have really high ketones, really high blood sugars, and then they do other tests and they find out you have no insulin. Then that's when you want to worry, okay? As long as you have insulin, you will never, ever, 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 ever get ketoacidosis. Never. I haven't even had ketoacidosis from the infections I've been sick with, like COVID and all that stuff. Nope, never happened. Not even once. I never even smelled the ketones in my body. Never smelled it once. No one said I smelled like ketones. No one said, oh, you have a bit of a fruity smell right now. Should we worry about that? No one ever mentioned it. Everything smelled weird to me when I was sick with COVID. Everything smelled a bit like, I'm like, is that ketones? But everything around me had that smell. I smelled nothing in the normal way that I used to. Everything smelled like, kind of like ketones. Everything. But my food, my pee, my surroundings, just everything. Even me. Everything. So it wasn't even related to ketones at that point. That was just because of the virus. The virus made everything smell like that. Because it threw everything off. Right? Everything smelled like ketones. So I'm like, well, I'm breathing okay. No one says I smell like... No one said my smell is off. And I'm like, I can take deep enough breaths. Like, I'm not feeling symptoms of any kind of immediate danger. I I'm not getting worse. I'm stable. So, I mean, I'm not worried. If I am that person that if something gets worse and doesn't seem to be getting better, I'll call for someone if I have to. Okay? And I will tell you now, I've had close calls to where I'd be like, I'm sitting there feeling my heart go boom, 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 boom. It was really bad when I had the iron deficiency, right? I was going to call the hospital because because my heart would just skip and skip and skip. It like did it like 10 times in a row. Boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, crap, what do I do? I was ready. I like grabbed my phone. I'm like, I think I need to call 911. Crap. And I would have if it didn't quit. I do wait sometimes. Sometimes I do. If it continued for like minutes, maybe a minute, I would have been like, okay, my breathing's starting to change too. It's starting to affect, like I'm getting pain. I need to call 911 now. And I would have, because at that point my heart would have been like, you got to do something. I can't do this on my own here. Something's wrong here. And if I'd started feeling pain, I would have. I called 911 the other day when there was a fight of some type that broke out in my building. I'm that person. I trust my parents, okay? Sometimes I am a little bit of a hypochondriac. A little bit. So that's sometimes why I wait a little bit. But I make a promise to myself. If this doesn't go away within this amount of time, then I'm going to make the call. All right? And then a lot of the times it does end up going away. Or if it comes back and I know what it is and I know what helped before, then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to breathe through this and wait through this. Anyway, all that to say, I never had symptoms of ketoacidosis during COVID. Never once. And we were using a lot of bathrooms. The first day that I got sick, we were using a lot of the bathrooms and a lot of public bathrooms. My mom never said anything about, what is that fruit smell? She never said anything about that. Why? What is it? Anytime you go to the bathroom, I notice you have this weird fruit smell. I smell it from the room. Because she'd be very close by, right? She'd be outside the door, but I'm sure she would have smelt it. Pretty sure. Because ketones have a very strong smell, right? They do. I'm sure she would have noticed. Somebody would have. I'm pretty sure someone would have. And even when I first got sick, I noticed my smell changing a little bit, but it was still kind of the same. Maybe my ketones were high enough, but not enough to be dangerous, right? I don't know, maybe they went up to like 1 or 2. It's usually dangerous when it's 7. Anyway, I know this is droning on and on and on, but I'm getting so sick and tired of Chantal's getting ketoacidosis. Chantal's getting ketoacidosis. She's getting ketoacidosis. Blah. I've already explained myself. I don't need to go into it anymore. I'll see you guys in the next video, and I'm sorry about the the last video. I don't know what happened, because it wasn't, like, it was on my news page for some reason, and I don't know why, but my pausing and unpausing was still working. So I don't know why it was on the news page, despite me hitting the keys to pause and unpause. So, pause and play, I mean. So, like, why? I don't know. Anybody know what's going on with Microsoft Edge? Because I'm watching YouTube, and it's like, why? Like, because it's ramping up my computer, too. And that's never happened before. Not unless I'm in the mini player. And I was not in the mini player, people. I was not in the mini player, because the mini player takes you back to the main YouTube page. It does that in mini player. But anyways, let me know how I can fix that with YouTube, and I will see you guys in the next one, and I'm sorry again. All right, later, guys. Derps.